Good morning, everyone. I'd really like to congratulate SALISES and the Institute for Gender and Development Studies and the Socialist Students Conference for coming together for this important discussion, which will probably be only the start of this important discussion. And I hope that I will have as much time for my presentation as my predecessor did. And there's some repetition in what I say in relation to what he said, but I think you'll find that the conclusions might be quite different. So, I was asked to give a response from the University of the West Indies standpoint, and I must say the University of the West Indies, as you would agree, is a diverse institution, and I have consulted with some of my senior colleagues, but I've also put in this some of my own thinking on this issue. So what I have there is a brief background of what I plan to do, and I think the key question that I plan to explore today is, what is education? A public good or a private gain? And I think a public service or a personal good. And I think my predecessor began the debate by arguing that it's primarily something of individual achievement. And in fact, I think that that has been the predominant approach to education generally in our society, and I think that it has to be changed. I think that because education is perceived primarily as an individual achievement, we have seen distortions in the way people are taught, distortions in how we assess, distortions in how our university systems are organized, and how people are rewarded. And I think we need a discussion about how this is changed. So, of course, I think for this audience, most people know the history of the university, which now comprises 4 campuses, with our start in 1948 in Jamaica. And I think that in deciding on what our university should be, we on this campus have been engaging in a strategic planning exercise that has caused us to return to the origins of our institution. And if we read Douglas Hall in his book, where he looked at the factors contributing to the institution of the UWI, he identified 3 historical factors. 1, a growing sense of nationalism and urges towards independence in individual British territories. Determination by the British to rid themselves of the growing social, political, and economic problems, especially after the strikes and disturbances of the 1930s throughout the region, and the increasing U.S. interest in extending its influence in this region. And I have an extract from the 1948 Charter about the objects of the University College of the West Indies then, to provide in the full extent which its resources from time to time permit, the research and the instruction in the humanities and sciences and other spheres of learning and knowledge of a standard and thoroughness required and expected of a university of the highest standard, and to accrue the advancement of knowledge and the diffusion and extension of the arts, sciences of learning, and provision of liberal and professional education throughout our several colonies in the West Indies and the colonies of British Guyana and British Honduras. This chart, interestingly, that first charter had no mention of fees. By 1962, there was another charter, and that was when the university began to expand beyond Jamaica. And by 1972, I think that's the latest charter, the objects were to provide a place or places of education, learning, and research of a standard required and expected of a university. You know, I see the term standard always mentioned there. And to secure the advancement of knowledge, diffusion and extension of the arts, sciences, and learning throughout the corresponding territories, to continue and expand its work and activities, and by the example and influence of its corporate life, to promote wisdom and understanding. So what I see here are the lofty goals that those who established the institution had for us. And we need to explore whether we are continuing to achieve those objectives. Now, I did a very detailed summary of the situation with tuition fees, and I think that my colleague also did. Mine was more detailed. When I attended UWI, which was many years ago, and now you know how old I am, fees were approximately 2% of the cost of keeping a student at university. There was no tuition, and in these faculties, we only paid those nominal fees. At that time, every government had to make a fixed contribution. By 1984, governments complained, especially in the smaller territories, that they could not afford to pay for such a large university of which they did not benefit equally. So there was restructuring, and governments were now responsible for the campuses on their countries. But I think what is important to note is the government, including the government of Trinidad and Tobago, continues to contribute to the wider UWI and not just Trinidad and Tobago. So the Trinidad and Tobago government contributes to the University of the West Indies and not only to the St. Augustine campus. In the recession period, a cess first of 10% was introduced, then 15%, and then 20%, which it now is. And that cess is 20% of what is calculated as the full economic cost of having a student at the university. And in some cases, some countries could not afford, they decided to reduce the number of students that they had because contributing governments still had to pay that 80%. So the tuition fees are only 20% or under of the full economic cost that governments are supposed to pay. And I think that's important for us to notice. And also for some years now, many governments have not been able to make their contribution. So many governments are in debt. So right now, all governments now pay this 20% tuition fee, and whenever the economic costs go up, then the fees are supposed to increase, but sometimes the fees increase, but the governments insist they cannot increase their payment, which results in a gap there that needs to be considered. In addition, because of this and other factors, today the UWI has had to become more creative, more entrepreneurial, and in fact today produces 50% or more of its annual budget. However, the contributions of contributing governments continue to be central and critical to our income. Now, as you heard, there was a dollar for dollar program. I just want to point out some specific distinctions. Dollar for dollar was introduced on selected programs. For example, when I was head of gender and development studies, our graduate programs in gender were not selected. Clearly, they were not seen as aligned with the government's development paradigm. Cost sharing, as we know the government paid, they were conditional on performance based. So in the second year of study, if you failed, you failed more than 2 courses, you lost it. And there were obligations. What we found is that every time these obligations for post-graduation employment locally are established, there are no mechanisms to ensure that this takes place. Now, of course, we heard about GATE, how it was introduced, initially with 50%. A means test was a rich questionnaire that was eventually removed, and we know it went to 100. But GATE also had conditions. You're supposed to stay here for 3 years after, and if not, then the grant was converted. Anyway, but let me just summarize. There was also a higher education loan program, HELP, that accompanied GATE. But however, again, there was no mechanism to make sure that people gave that 3-year residency. I don't know if I could be corrected. In 2011, 2012, with the change of government, GATE was expanded to, that should be TVET programs, which is very interesting. You now have programs in cosmetology, hairdressing, etc. Those persons now qualifying for GATE. I just want to mention that around 2004, Caribbean government signed on to the World Trade Organization General Agreement on Trades and Services. I think this was a very critical thing that happened that never received much popular discussion. But as a result of this, governments could no longer subsidize or prioritize their own national industries or institutions. As a result, all the provisions of GATE or any other provisions now have to operate equally including international institutions offering courses in Trinidad and Tobago. And this caused a significant transfer of funds abroad for all of the University of Leicester, Henley, all of those programs whose fees were quoted in foreign exchange. And I think it's because of the GATS program that governments could not privilege national institutions. I just want to say that it's rules like this that have been resulting in the revolt against the establishment in countries that are confronting us right now. But I'll get more to that later on. Now, what are some of the achievements? There have been achievements in the numbers accessing tertiary and higher education. On the part of UWI, I would like to say that UWI made a conscious decision to increase numbers. I don't think it was just a matter of more gate and taking in gate. It was a conscious decision because I think the university felt that in terms of the large numbers of persons who needed higher education and the contribution the university was getting from governments, it needed to have a higher ratio of students in order to support its position. But also higher numbers of students also brought in more income to the institution. So I think that GATE meant more persons were applying, but I don't think that that was the only reason why the numbers increased. There were also policy decisions that were taken by the organization. Now the GATE authority claims that the target was 60% of the eligible cohort for tertiary education, and that was surpassed and reached 65% in 2015 and 2014. That's an error, sorry. And now, I have a challenge with this metric, but I didn't have the time to look into this, because it didn't say how many graduates were actually resulted, and how that changed the national figures in terms of tertiary level graduates in relation to the rest of the population. Now, there was also an increase, I think, although I haven't been able to study, in the diversity of students who were able to access higher education. Now, what are some of the challenges? There was a proliferation of GATE-approved institutions offering programs of varying quality. There was an ever-increasing expenditures by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, reaching a high of $757 million in 2012, and that is when they started putting certain measures that began to bring it down again. There were difficulties in monitoring post-graduation enrollment, employment, as I said, and there was also the perception that the recipients were wasting time, taking advantage, jumping from program to program, and not using the opportunity in the specimen. So there were some serious changes in 2012, 2014, which I think did not register on the popular landscape. So from 2012, GATE no longer covered students who had failed their first year, that is at a GPA below 2, and they would then have to pay for their own education after that year. Students were only funded for one program, so if you did not finish a program, you would have to pay the fees for that program before you could move on to one program. I know of a student, a mature student, who had been struggling for years in one program, and eventually the university suggested she switch to another program which she could complete better. But when she switched, they said you have to pay back $40-something thousand in GATE. So she was in a catch-22 situation. And the help loan was now revised and only open to GATE-approved students. Now this effectively reduced the opportunities for persons to take advantage, quote unquote, of the program, because there were much stricter guidelines and monitoring mechanisms. Now 2016 to 2017, the most recent GATE treatments received discontinuation of funding for medical program in St. George's. New students over 50 will not receive any funding, and we see a number of other students, etc., etc. Now, one of the big proposals that's supposed to come on stream next year is a mean test requirement with eligibility, and we saw that the divisions under 10,000 income a month, 100%, income over 10,000, 25%, students from households over 20, 50%. And the question is, how do we develop that means test? And the University of the West Indies has offered its expertise in this area. And I'm drawing on some of the expertise now. It was noted that there are different ways a mean test could be carried out. You could have an income test, where you take into account all income, or only wealth-related income, such as investment income or income from a business. You can look at assets, residential property, cars. You can look at you can also look at eliminate benefits and look at other things. But I think what is being suggested is that all of these would be very difficult, and especially, of course, since we know that our income tax data is not as robust as we would like, and other reasons. So what is being proposed is a proxy test, which is able to look at individual characteristics of a household. For example, I think my next slide deals with it. Yeah, tax income is generally difficult, challenges of inefficiencies. That we are proposing a proxy means test using the Survey of Living Conditions. The latest one was 2014, which is done through the Poverty Eradication Unit, and that and also we are noting that this proxy mean test should also include factors such as persons with disabilities, single-headed households, rural and geographic locations, households with multiple persons wishing to access tertiary level or TVET education, etc. But this would mean that the Survey of Living Conditions would have to be produced regularly. The exclusion of 50 plus was something that disturbed us here at the university because we felt it was a retrograde step that went against the equal opportunity legislation of this country, as well as numerous UN conventions of which we are signatories. An analysis of our undergraduate data showed that the 50% plus proportion was 1.6%, and therefore that this could be accommodated to the means test provision. And we feel that we also found that this provision could upset our upskilling in some critical areas, which usually, if we know, attract older persons. For example, nursing, where we have a number of nurses who've been working for years in the system and now using the opportunity to get university qualifications, which have only recently become available. And also teachers who have been in the system who have not had this education, principals who we want to upgrade in order to improve the quality of our education system. We also know that there are certain faculties where mature persons enter because it gives them an opportunity to get late qualifications after years of being out of the system. And I think these are things that we need to look at. Now, in terms of determining national priorities, for those of us in the social sciences, we always have concerns about this, because what we usually hear national priorities are economic. And what I want to ask, in our years of economic plenty, what has happened to the social fabric of our society? And I think that these are things that we need to look at. So we are saying that in terms of the national priorities, we need to include the social, the psychological, the environmental, the health, the artistic, and the aesthetic, and other needs of society. And in terms of articulating a vision, I think we need to look at the US Sustainable Development Goals, which have a broad range of goals, including the goal of gender equality. And we do agree that there also needs to be a link to a national and regional manpower planning exercise, but it's also raised to the broader framework that we mentioned. And I want to say the University of St. Augustine is already engaged in this. Okay, I have to go quickly. Global experiences. Well, this is the US experience, which is almost a totally privatized experience. And I think the big thing we want to look at here is that the US has been faced with a major problem of student debt. And in 2013, the share of students graduated increased with debt increased from 55% to 60%, which has proved to be counterproductive because for many students, they spend the rest of their lives having to repay that student debt. And I don't have the time, unfortunately, to go into this. And federal aid, which was there, has declined from about 70% to 30%, etc. I don't have time to really look at higher education in the UWI. The UK in 2089 introduced a means test tuition fees. Originally there was a cap of £1,000. Today The fee in England is £9,250 per year. Wales, Scotland, and have had different policies. Wales, for example, I think they offer their students a grant to offset most of the tuition fees. And I think so Scottish Parliament has decided that undergraduate students will not pay fees towards tuition. Nordic countries, I think they are best practice. They all offer free education. But I think what we need to look at is the entire education system of the Nordic countries from cradle to grave. And the importance that they put on it, not as a provision for a personal good, but which has contributed to their countries having some of the highest standards of living in the world. And Germany, I think, after many years, Germany has now introduced free university education, including for international students. And I think there were and I don't have time to go into detail, but we can in the discussion. And then I wanted to spend a little time on South Africa, which, as you know, came out of decades of apartheid where there was systematic discrimination and exclusion. And I think South Africa made some serious mistakes in not putting in place opportunities for recovery by those populations that were excluded for so many decades. So that in South Africa, therefore, university fees are unregulated, and university budgets, of course, have been cut. And I mean, we could discuss later why we are experiencing all these cuts. But we know that between 2015 to now, there have been widespread student strikes in South Africa, and there were hikes at 10%, 12% in 2016, and there was an attempt to introduce another 8% in 2017, which resulted in widespread strikes that are still ongoing. And I just put some details there of the South African student financial aid system. So where do we go from here? First of all, I am arguing that education must be seen as an investment in the people and the country and understood as a public good. And we are seeing today where in countries the social and political impact of the absence of higher education, of mass higher in the US and the UK. I was struck during the night of the elections to hear how many of the analyses were on college educated and non-college educated groups. And I think that in the Brexit debates, ditto. So I think that what we are seeing is that college education, and I must qualify here, not college or university, certification, which is another debate we have to have, is critical for the sustainable development of all our societies, be they in the North or the South. And I think it's a question of priorities, because anyway, that's for the discussion. So I think unfortunately, we have trained our population to see education as a private good. This is the reason why our entire system is overly competitive, overly focused on certain professions, not for the interest of those professions, but primarily because of the money that can come from those occupations. So I think that as a university, we have a job to do in reorienting our society's approach to education and what to do. Investment in education is just that, to me, an investment in the sustainable development of the society. In circumstances where the individual contribution must be increased, I believe that there are certain basic principles that must be ensured. One, that all persons who desire to and are eligible for tertiary education should be able to do so. There should be no discrimination on age, disability, income, sex, gender, sexual orientation. In other words, if we cannot afford to pay for everyone, we must at least ensure that those who cannot afford are supported to have access. Income should not be a barrier to education as well as the other factors. Also, that good education is a public good from which the entire society should benefit in the medium and long term. And therefore, I think that Education must also contribute, in addition to contributing to jobs and employment, to higher levels of knowledge where people can evaluate their environment and make the right job decision, right employment or entrepreneurial decision. Higher levels of knowledge, wisdom, science, problem solving, and social understanding, leading to that better quality of life that continues to elude us in Trinidad and Tobago, even though we have been blessed with high levels of income. And I do feel that the UWI has to play a much more critical role in this regard. Thank you.